My name is Jasmine. I'm 26 years old. I was actually born with a liver condition.
You have always been the kind to come right in, make yourself.
It's a rare condition called biliary atresia. In this condition, usually patients are born with it. My liver wasn't able to properly filter out all the toxins. And so when I was less than a month old, the doctor had to perform an 8-hour surgery on me, and that corrected the blockage.
Before I give you a call, before I drive my facade, you are ready to hold me.
But the problem with that procedure was that it only kind of bought time for me while my liver gradually cirrhosed. It's created scars inside, and so I inevitably needed a transplant. Kids with my disease normally get a transplant when they're like 3 or 4 years old, their liver gives out. I lasted for 17 years with this liver. It was strong enough to keep me going, so we were just waiting for my liver to fail, basically, but it never gave up.
Circumstance and discontent shade the way I see you now, but you're clearly...
As we were waiting, we basically thought maybe I wouldn't even need a transplant because my case was so unique.
For all the ways I tried to say, let me go, I do it on my own. God, I'm sorry.
When I was 17, I actually went on a missions trip to the Philippines because I was fairly healthy. We didn't really need to be too alarmed. And when I was there, that's when my liver actually gradually failed.
You are ready to hold me. You're in my head. You're in my heart. You're in my soul.
I had really yellow eyes. My skin started to turn a gray color. I thought that I was just fighting a cold and I was just having to fight it off, but my mom had a feeling that my liver had failed, so they rushed me to an emergency room, and we finally got a hold of a doctor that was on call. And when she came and saw me that night, she advised that I would stay in the Philippines to wait for a liver transplant because my situation was so dire that they didn't think I'd be safe enough to fly back to the States.
You have me, you won't let me go. You have me, God, you want me. You're in my head, you're in my heart, you're in my soul. You reach for me when I won't, I push you, I try to resist you.
We didn't know what to do, but thankfully God gave my dad some wisdom to just go against those orders and to fly me back to the States. So we went on an emergency flight back home to San Diego. They ran a bunch of tests and they sent me home with the diagnosis that my liver is just drastically failing and they needed to relist me on the liver transplant list. When I was waiting for a transplant at the time, I was confined in the hospital for a good 2 months. My kidneys were also giving up, and I was so tired that day, and my mom went to go home to change some clothes real quick. I fell into deep sleep, and because of all the toxins that were accumulating in my body, I just couldn't wake up. And so thankfully, there was a nurse in the ICU that I had made friends with. And normally nurses don't go home and say goodbye to every patient. But for some reason, she came back to my room and said goodbye. And I had fallen into such a deep sleep that I couldn't open my eyes. And so she was like, Jasmine, wake up, look at me. My vision was super blurred.
You reach for me when I won't, I push you.
And so she got called to rush me to an emergency CAT scan. That's when they realized that I was racing against time.